It is the 9 o'clock hour here Mountain Time, and I'm going to call my sister Wendy and add her to this conversation. Yay. And we're going to talk about Therapy Thursdays. I should have this already set up, but I don't. Yeah,
lending the show an air of credibility and
yeah, like far more than it would have had otherwise.
Right.
I mean, this. Oh, we have our first ring. Sir, could you please turn down your radio, sir? Ring-a-ding-dong. Hello, Wendy Dunford.
How you doing?
Good morning. Oh, you sound great this week. Last week, your AT&T call was kind of poop.
Oh, did it really?
It's not your fault. It's just AT&T.
I was hiding in a closet to get away from my 2-year-old, so that could have been why.
Oh, were you really doing that?
Yeah, a little bit. But today, I got a babysitter, so...
Oh, awesome.
I'm good. I'm in the open.
Okay, well, people should see that the little boy she's talking about, Elliot, is the cutest thing on planet Earth currently. But he is a curious George, that kid. He wants to get into everything.
Yeah.
Except closets, apparently.
Yeah.
Primarily closets. Well, Wendy, welcome back to the show. Now, as you know, this week we decided to go a little bit different and try something that may be the kind of standard moving forward, and that is we got some emails ahead of time to talk about on the show that were a little bit more succinct, and you know, we don't have to sort of guess at what the next call is going to be. We don't really have screeners here in this huge production that we do every morning. So let's jump into it. It is Therapy Thursdays, and Wendy probably has some thoughts on these. I'm going to go ahead and rattle off one of these emails, and then let's talk about it. Somebody named A, they didn't give their name, just A. I think we're going to treat everyone anonymously with all these. Mm-hmm. Says, Dear Wendy, or Dear Dr. Wendy, or Dear Mr. Wendy, like I thought that song was earlier. Long story, Wendy. You don't have to know what that is. Dear, she's used to this from me. Dear Dr. Wendy, please explain to the people that become terribly distressed. What? Please explain the people that become terribly distressed when I hear screaming children. I think he means himself. I only want to get far, far away and not rush to comfort the child. So in other words, kids are driving him nuts, and that distresses him because he doesn't want to be.
He should be more.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
None of us want to be that guy. So what do you tell a guy like that?
I think it's interesting. You guys think it's a guy.
Oh, look at me.
Oh, wow. Good point. Yeah.
Look at me, all sexist today.
Yeah, well, all sexist and all like projecting your own. You guys don't like to hear kids scream. No. Actually, as I read this, I thought that's super intriguing, and I would love to find out if this, first of all, is male or female, and if they have children of their own. Because I think, when I read this, I think this person wants to know, am I a bad person for not wanting to run and comfort a child? Because I know I should. That's what I should do when I hear a kid cry, right?
Right.
So here's my thoughts on that. Until you have children of your own. If this person has children, well, then maybe there's something else we need to discuss. But if they don't have children, they need to be a little easier on themselves, because something clicks in your brain when you have kids. Because other children crying before I had children drove me crazy. Like, please get that kid to be quiet. It's just distressing. And there's so much research on the pitch and tone of babies' cries that it does something in our souls that makes us super agitated, so we can't leave them alone to die, basically. So there's an evolutionary advantage to the sounds that they make. But I think what happens is when you have your own kid, there is a connection that is made. So, for example, on my husband's side of the family, there's a million cousins. And when we get together and the kids are in another room and you hear someone cry, not one of us can tell if it's our own child or not. But if I'm in a group of other people, I always know if it's my kid or not. There is some kind of genetic, we're in charge of keeping them alive, right? And I'm going to plug Radio Lab real quick here. There's a great episode called The Good Show they had on recently, all about if two people were about to drown, you're going to save the one that shares your closest genetic makeup. So your sister, as opposed to, the guy that lives down the street. There is this strong pull to keep your genetic line alive. And so this children crying thing, don't worry about yourself, male or female. If you don't have children, if you do have children and you're running away when they're screaming, well,
that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother episode. So let me, and I heard that same Radio Lab episode, and we've recommended that show on this very show before, and people have already written and said, oh my gosh, that show was great. I can't believe I'd missed it. Thank you for recommending it. That was a really interesting episode. And what it was trying to basically say, it was trying to figure out if we are inherently nice, or if we're doing it all just out of survival, and things like, you know, saving somebody you're related to before you would save somebody you're not is a greater likelihood, because that's a way of carrying on your genes or your genetic material, even though you are maybe going to die in the process. Saving that little kid probably gives a greater probability that your genetic code continues on. Do you feel like, let's just flip it a little bit, in cases where it is your own kids that are driving you crazy and you can't stand the sound of their scream, and it means you're shutting them in a room and ignoring them.
Right.
What let's just pretend that that's his problem for just a second. Where does he go first for something like that?
Well, part of it is, you know, what outlets does this person have? I think every one of us has a limit. You can't hear screaming all day long, or, you know, be around bratty kids all day long and not go a little nuts. And so, you know, figuring out what balance he needs in his life or she needs in her life, you know, time away, time to recoup, maybe some parenting classes. If those kids are screaming all day, there's something wrong with either the child or your parenting, because that's not normal to have all day long being, you know, in that situation. However, there are resources and there's skills you can gain and learn and get to know your child better, and also may be ambivalent about where they're at in their child raising. I mean, I think, let's be honest, it's hard to raise kids, and it's hard to be constantly giving and, you know, and of course they give back, but there's a difference. It's a very unselfish thing you've got to do to be a parent. So I think, you know, figuring out what's going on for this person. Are they ambivalent about that situation? With, you know, but you can't just say, well, I don't want to be a parent anymore. You are. So you then figure out, how do you get balance in your life? How do you get the things that you need so that you have the wherewithal to handle the screaming, and then figure out, okay, if I'm a better parent, or maybe my child needs some help, then there's less screaming.
When I was a parent of young kids, and Brian, you may be able to speak to this too, but there was a time where I could tell when one of my kids would cry in the crib, and they were crying because they really were hungry or had a poopy diaper or whatever their problem was. That it was a real problem that as a parent I needed to respond to. I could tell the difference between that and when they were just crying to get held for no other reason other than to, you know, get me to come pick them up. And, and so there were times where we made the decision, and it was not easy as a parent, but made the decision to try to distinguish between those two, verify that was true, and then let them learn to be alone in that crib and sleep. And sometimes that meant crying for 15 minutes and then falling asleep. Mm-hmm. We didn't do it all the time, but we did it occasionally. And as a result, now I am a huge believer in that. I'm a huge believer in not constantly going, oh my gosh, because I think that's what my mom did with me. And Wendy and I talk about this all the time. But I think if I even went, my mom went, oh my gosh, get the child. And she would run and grab me.
What's happened.
Yeah. And she would hold me. And now look at me now. So my point is, it seems like my kids had greater sense of independence when they were really young, as a result of us not constantly saving them from just simple boredom, or they don't want to sleep, or those kinds of things, but being there every time they really needed us, which was, you know, projectile vomiting across the room, or sitting in their own poo or whatever. Does that jive with current methods where we write to instinctually determine which case it was and then act accordingly?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a ton of research to back up what you just said, and that is that those kids have to learn a sense of self. And if you imagine, and this is true for all of us, our parents have been mirrors. They're mirrors for us up till a period of time. When I look at, you know, my mom as a young child, she's a mirror. She's mirroring back. If I'm likable, if I'm disgusting, if I'm, you know, I can see in her face who I am, and that is necessary to some extent. But what happens when a parent responds to every squeak, the child is only looking in the mirror to get feedback. There's never any time, space, air for them to sit alone, be alone. And so, for example, when you would leave them in the crib to talk or babble in the morning instead of rushing in there to get them because they're awake, you're taking away their time where they are actually learning how to speak. And they're also gaining a sense of self. sense of self-awareness. And it starts very young, and obviously it's a gradual process, but independence early on is a good thing because you're meeting their basic needs, but they're also learning a little discomfort in small, healthy doses that, prepare them for what, is real life. It's helicopter parenting is a great way to look at it. When people never stop doing that, they're always rushing in and rescuing. The rate of depression and anxiety amongst 20-somethings, early 30-somethings whose parents treated that way is just skyrocketing because the parents don't want them to feel 1 ounce of pain, but they never learn to handle that pain.
I'm telling you. Not that I'm all depressed or anything, but just saying. She's picking me up too much. All right. Well, I was going to do 2 of these emails today, but we're kind of running out of time. And this next one is kind of huge, like a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to save this one for the next Therapy Thursday, even though it seems like this is the kind of thing you don't want to delay. But for time reasons, we really don't have a choice. But I really want to talk about this. It deals with suicide and suicidal teens and parents trying to deal with that. And I'm kind of stoked to hear your take on how people approach a problem like this, because it's a kind of a crazy sounding kind of dead end kind of problem. So we will do that next week for sure. Wendy Dunford, once again, bringing the heat, telling us what bringing, like Brian said right before we called you, Brian's like bringing an air of what'd you say?
Credence, lending an air of credence to the show.
Making us seem like we know what the hell we're doing and there's something important on the show.
Or credibility, yeah.
Credibility is a great way to look at it. So Wendy, thanks a lot, and I guess we'll see you next Thursday.
All right.
Take it.
Good one.
Actually, I'll see you Sunday, where the Packers will kill the Steelers.
I'm going to pick the Steelers just to be oppositional.
Damn it! All right, I'll see you then. Okay. Have a good one. All right, that's my sister Wendy Dunford. That's Therapy Thursdays. I love that segment.
I do too. I wish we had more time for it. Honestly.
I know. Maybe we need to dedicate more time to it. I don't know. I have to think about that. But we're learning as we go. Last week it was like, well, let's do live calls. That sounds like fun. But live calls are kind of like, it's just too unknown.
It's dangerous. Yeah.
It's dangerous. Plus, I think one guy called and just kind of went, bleh. It's just like not even a real call. So I would really want to do this kind of thing where it's with the emails. But then, so I had 3 emails prepared.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, we'll get all 3 of these. Well, all of these deserve more discussion than we're able to do. So I think, we'll hit one big one a week. And if we have time for more, we'll have a second one. And we'll just play this by ear, man. We're learning as we go. Right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.